I had the blog prior to having the product. So I already had a voice, and I think people already kind of knew a little bit about me, about empowering women and self-love and health and wellness and beauty and stuff. So by the time I had the product, it was like, oh, okay, they already kind of trusted me.
Welcome to Empowerista, female entrepreneurs finding freedom and fulfillment in their life and career. I'm your host, Alex Worley, the founder and CEO of Empowerista, an award-winning producer and national TV host, seen on platforms like Business Rockstars, Entrepreneur.com, and Amazon Prime. I am so excited to share my candid conversations with successful women as they reveal the tips and truths they've learned on their entrepreneurial journey. My guest today is Jessie Golden, the founder and CEO of The Golden Secrets, a natural skincare company with an emphasis on self-love. With a background in dance, yoga, and modeling, Jessie built a six-figure social media following while promoting other businesses. Eventually, she decided to leverage her influence to create her own business that stood for what she believes in most, self-love. In this episode, Jessie breaks down building a product-based business while balancing motherhood and living with rheumatoid arthritis, emphasizing the importance of rest and building a supportive team. Let's take a listen. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So it's been several years since we last chatted.
I know.
And what's cool is you were just starting The Golden Secrets.
I was.
And you're such a good example of your background's in modeling and big influencer, but you had this bigger vision because a lot of traditional influencers, they sell other people's products, but you decided to create your own. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, it was actually an accidental business, As you said, I was modeling my entire life, and I was promoting other people's products, and I learned a lot being on that side of things. But I actually was handcrafting my own skincare for well over 20 years. I started kind of messing with essential oils in high school, and I originally started with a blog called The Golden Secrets, where I just started sharing insights originally into wellness and health. I'm a yoga teacher and holistic health practitioner. And then it kind of naturally went into beauty and spirituality and motherhood. So I was just writing and sharing, originally. And then a friend of mine who I really admire in business said, honey, why don't you, he actually said, darling, he's British, darling, why don't you bottle that essential oil that everyone is always asking you, what it is, where can they get it? And I thought it was the worst idea, actually, yeah. And then it's really funny, I got kind of protective, and I was like, I don't want everyone smelling like me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I was like, this is so weird. Who do I think I am going to bottle this stuff? And then I kind of had this epiphany that this little bottle of essential oil, as ridiculous as it is, was such a huge part of my life in the last decade. And it wasn't so much, the properties of the essential oil and how it made me feel. It was actually the act of pulling it out of my purse and taking the moment for myself and having that, thinking that it was giving me some kind of tuning in or superpower to go throughout my day. And I thought, I have to share this. That's what I do. I share what works for me, and this is such a huge part of it. So
yeah, and that's a really good tip if someone's watching or listening and they want to be an entrepreneur, but they're not exactly sure what to do, whether it's product-based or service-based. A good question to ask yourself is, what do people come to me for? And so if people were coming to you and being like, what is that smell? What is that product? And they were so intrigued and wanted to learn more and wanted to use it, that is such a good sign. And obviously, eventually you listened. Promoting other people's products where you don't have overhead and you don't have the operational costs is so much different than developing and operating your own. So tell me about that. What does it take to create a product line?
I have never worked so hard in my life. It really is, I've kind of gotten over the hump, but there was a point where I was like, had I known what this was going to entail, I don't know if I would have dove in. Because it is, it's the whole thing of if you're working for somebody else or if you're, promoting for somebody else, there's an end time, there's a clock out. Mm-hmm. And I'm so driven and I'm so strong-willed. and I like to finish things. So that can be really complicating because it's never ending. There's always work to do. So I've had to really work on finding the balance between, my family and work and just like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, I'm done. Even though there's still 9 million things to do, that was a huge lesson for me.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because some of the values we have here at Empowerista are, cultivating that freedom and flexibility and fulfillment that can come from entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
If you're running the show and it's not running you.
Yes.
So it sounds like you've had to really learn how to do that. Any advice for how to be able to shut it off and prioritize so that you're focusing on the right things and able to do that?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's, my family comes first and my health. And if I don't have those two things, nothing else matters. And I realized that I was the one actually putting all the pressure on myself, feeling like I needed to get to a space. So once I kind of let that go, I've been able to enjoy the process more, with work and enjoy my family more. And it's a constant practice. I think balance is a constant practice for everybody, but just being aware of it is the first step.
And how is it working for you? Do you feel like your business is still able to thrive at the level from when you were maybe extending yourself more than you would have wanted to?
Yeah, that's what's so funny. It's like, I think I was just driving myself crazy, but I'd still, progressing and moving forward, even though I've, structured more of like a time frame for myself. It's really interesting.
So a lot of it comes down to those boundaries of just knowing what time you're going to shut it off and focus on other parts of your life.
And time management. I mean, I think everybody can relate, with social media, and there's lots of distractions and there's so much information out there, and I want to see everything and do everything. But I've just kind of blocked out certain times where I like go in airplane mode, where I'm not on the phone, I'm not on the computer, I'm actually doing something like in the office, creating oils or shipping or whatever. And then I'll take time to answer emails. Like I kind of have mapped it out instead of just constantly being on my phone and answering every email. I kind of blocked it out. So
you time block. Yeah, that works for a lot of people where they say, okay, this hour is dedicated to this, no other distractions, because it's amazing how much time those distractions take up.
Yeah.
I mean, I am so guilty.
Yes.
So many times to be like, where is the time went? And then you look at your apps and you're like, oh, that's where it went.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's quite amazing once you get down to it.
Yes.
So on top of all of that, you live with rheumatoid arthritis. I would imagine that adds a layer of complication and makes it that much important that you take that you time and that you really create that balance. Tell me about what it's like to live with it, especially as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's almost like having 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Because anybody that's living with a chronic disease or, a lingering health issue, you just have to be more aware. You have to take care of yourself, whether it's diet and stress levels and all of these things. We were just talking about living on the beach. I made that move, on purpose for my family and for my health, so I can kind of sneak out to work and do my little beach walk. I just kind of have to take care of myself a little bit more than a normal person. But it's definitely there. I still handcraft everything. So, some mornings my body's like, oh, your hands aren't working that good. So there is a whole nother layer. It's really interesting, actually.
Yeah. One thing I do really like about entrepreneurship is the ability to be more fluid with my schedule.
Yes.
And it sounds like you've really set up a business model where you can do that. It's really nice. And it's a double-edged sword because you also have to have the discipline, and there has to be obviously a certain degree of structure to get things done. But it is nice that there is, I think, a little bit more flexibility where you can kind of wake up in the morning and ask yourself, like, what does my body need? What does my business need?
Yes.
And if your body needs a break in the middle of the day, be like, that's okay, because I don't have a boss that's going to yell at me if I go for a walk. And in fact, that's going to be better for me. When I come back, I'm going to be more productive. And I might not, shut down immediately at 5 o'clock, but that's okay. And it's really, really really nice just to kind of be more in tune with myself. Do you feel a similar experience?
Yeah, and I think subconsciously I created that.
Yeah.
So that I can have that flexibility. You know, I always knew that I didn't know what I was going to do. You know, like we were talking about modeling. I modeled my entire life, and then I became a yoga teacher. I wasn't sure how I was going to transition, but I knew that I wanted to create that flexibility in my life so that I had that freedom.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about your business model, because you don't have a brick and mortar. You obviously have physical products, but a lot of what you do is completely digital. So tell me a little bit about how you actually market and sell your products.
Yeah, well, we're straight to consumer. We are on Amazon Handmade, which is a separate area where it's handcrafted products. But normally everything comes from our website, and like 80% of it comes from Instagram, social media. You know, I had the blog prior to having the product, so I already had a voice, and I think people already kind of knew a little bit about me, about empowering women and self-love and health and wellness and beauty and stuff. So by the time I had the product, it was like, oh, okay, they already kind of trusted me. You know, I see a lot of companies now doing things backwards where, you know, they have the great product, but there's no story and there's no history on it. And I think nowadays people are like really craving, they want to know the history of where a product is coming from and what's the story. And that's really what sells it for me, you know, as a consumer.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're alone either, because there's so much competition and so much noise. And I don't mean to say that in a way of creating, you know, a scarcity mindset, but that's just the reality that it's actually an opportunity to stand out by saying, I'm not just a product. Like, yeah, there might be several products that might work for you, but here's a story, here's the background, here's the authenticity that's coming, you know, behind this product, because people want to know what a brand stands for, because you really vote with your dollars. I mean, your dollars are a reflection of your values. And so when you're buying a product, you're not just supporting a product, you're supporting a business owner like you in this scenario. So I think that can be really, really powerful to establish that like, know, and trust. And that's why you're seeing so many influencers being so successful and influencer marketing being successful, because it's kind of creating the personal brand and that trust, and then selling the product, versus a lot of companies, like you mentioned, have the product, and it probably is a great product in a lot of cases, but they don't have that legwork of creating the story and the trust. So let's talk about how you did that. Yeah. I'm sure it was many years in the making, but you have a really big following and an audience with a lot of engagement. Was there a pivotal moment for you that helped your content or Instagram take off? Hey, super quick, if this episode is inspiring you, I'd be so very grateful if you did any or all of the following. Subscribe to the podcast, review the podcast, or take a screenshot of this episode and post it to your Instagram stories and tag @Empowerista so I can share your post. Your support seriously means so much and will allow me to continue making episodes.
You know, it's funny because I instantly think of, I started my Instagram page with 2 other girls that now have over 1 million. So in comparison, I'm always like, why? Because I'm nowhere near that. But you know, I was just on the tail end of the wave, or in the beginning, but I finished my modeling career with all the yoga companies that had just kind of come about, Aloe being one of them. I helped launch their Goddess legging, and they have one of the biggest yoga Instagram pages. So companies like that, a lot of yoga influence through Instagram was how I originally got a lot of my followers. And it's interesting because I think I used to confuse people. I feel like now it's becoming a little bit more acceptable to be dimensional. You know, I'm a mother, a model, a yoga teacher, holistic health. I have my company. And I think years ago when Instagram first started, people would get really confused. I would post a modeling picture, and then I would post my son, and I would lose followers. And then I was like starting a company. People were like, she's too confusing. Like, I think they just wanted me to be a yoga page.
Interesting.
But I was like, you know what? This is who I am. And that was also part of it. Was like, I'm not going to sell out. I'm going to be who I am, and I do all these things. And to me, that's inspiring. So I've really tried to stay, as authentic to myself as I possibly can through social media. And I think that, in the long run, is what people end up seeing and why they end up trusting you and wanting to buy your products. And we were talking about earlier just how everything came about. For years, people asked me, what is your golden secret? They gave me the name of my company.
Yeah.
I didn't even come up with that. My last name is Golden, and so people would kind of joke. And so I was like, there is something here. Like, I need to listen to what people are asking me,
Mm-hmm. Well, to your earlier point, I think that people need to know what to come to you for. So maybe in the beginning, they thought that they were going to come to you for yoga, tips, inspiration, whatever it was. And so then maybe they were a little confused when you posted other things. But I think what you've done so beautifully is you've maybe widened your net as far as what you post, but you still have a North Star. And I think that's what's most important. Like, people understand that if they follow Jessie Golden, they are going to get inspiration to live a better life. I mean, how would you describe it? How would you kind of describe your North Star, that guiding mission that drives everything that you do?
Inspire. I mean, that's my goal, is to just be the light and inspire and share tools that have worked for me. And I think the Golden Secrets, my company, embodies all of those things. I say it's yoga for skincare because it brings mindfulness in. It's organic beauty. It's good for the environment. We give back to organizations that help the environment. We're female-owned, self-funded, and really the products are just tools to help people tune in with themselves and create healthy daily rituals of self-love. I really feel like that is what everything else stems from, is the lack of self-love, or the self-love makes all the difference in the world. And I hope that, the Golden Secrets can be a tool for people to achieve that.
Yeah. And, the product may be essential oils, but the brand and kind of the emotionality and what you stand for is self-love. So tell me about how you incorporate that into your branding. I know that you do things like affirmations in your packaging. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah. It was so important, when I started the company, I was like, how can I be different? How can it go beyond the skin? I was in the modeling industry for so long and it felt very shallow to me. I was used to selling skincare and things and just throwing it on and being like, you guys buy this.
And it was more image focused
versus
very self-love focused.
Products I never actually used, and here I am selling it. You kind of feel like a sellout. So it was so important for me to create something that had more depth and everlasting change. So Louise Hay, who wrote "You Can Heal Your Life," she was a huge influence in my life and in my personal healing journey. So I decided to create affirmation cards that come with each product, and they're each different, specifically to that product, pertaining to that product. And I tell people to recite these affirmations while they're using the product. And it's so fascinating. So if you take the goddess shaping oil and you say to yourself, I love my body, and all of these beautiful things to yourself for 30 days, yes, the product is going to do its job, but you're creating everlasting change. You're rewiring your brain, and all of a sudden you're radiating this internal glow. It's a complete shift. And I tell people, if you feel absolutely ridiculous saying in the mirror, I am beautiful, I am worthy, I am grounded, all of these beautiful things, if you feel ridiculous, it means you need it. It means you need to do it. Because I know what that's like. Yeah. And most people do. You feel ridiculous. But, that's the foundation for everything. The self-love for yourself creates the partner you bring in, creates the job, creates the friends, creates everything, I believe. So
yeah, and what you just described, including that affirmation, that's what creates a brand. I mean, one part of it, and of course you and your personality, but that can be the difference between why somebody chooses your essential oils versus somebody else's, So really, really beautiful. And like you said, it's coming from an authentic place and what you stand for. Authenticity is definitely a buzzword. What does it mean to you in a tangible way? I mean, you touched on, for example, selling a product that you truly love and believe in. Is there anything else you can point to kind of demonstrate authenticity?
I mean, I think just walking your own path. I mean, even with business and, I've kind of done a lot of things in business unconventional, mostly because I just didn't know. And I've been learning about business as I go. But I don't know any other way other than to be truthful to myself, and I think that comes across in my company and who I am, even with, the Jessie Golden brand. I'm not going to promote a product. I've been offered to promote lots of products for lots of money that I could, throw back into my own company, but I just don't do it. I did it for years for as a model. But now I feel like it's different. I have my own stage and I have my own brand, and I'm only going to support companies that I actually believe in and that I've tried. And I think when people come to my page, they know that I'm not like selling everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's that balance between short-term gain and long-term gain, and accepting a sponsorship in the short term might give you a little money hit, but I think as a CEO, as entrepreneurs, we need to be thinking about the long game. And that really is what an entrepreneur is you have a larger vision and you're making decisions and taking steps that will bring you toward that larger vision, not just the little, quick wins.
Yes. Yeah.
So now that you've been doing this for a little bit here, and you said it was hard, but you're having success, what advice would you give yourself to that person that I interviewed a few years ago that was just starting the company?
I wish I would have hired my weakness earlier.
Tell me about that.
I think women, and I think people in general, but women especially, we feel like we can do everything, and we can. But it usually
not without going insane, though.
Yeah, it comes at a cost, And I'm very strong-willed, and I've taught myself how to do a lot of different things in the company behind the scenes, because I just didn't know who to hire. I didn't know where to hire. I didn't find it cost effective. I didn't understand, And now that I've hired a couple people that are way more efficient than I am at doing...
At what specifically?
Like digital marketing and helping create emails and dealing with influencers and affiliate programs. And even just, I have an assistant now that just helps me answer emails and customer service. And, it's those
the admin
little...
things that take so much time.
Take up so much time. I think that's... my boyfriend asks me sometimes, like, oh, what did you do today, honey? And I'm like, well, I put out fires for the first 2 hours. You don't realize that these are basic things, So before I even get to my master to-do list, sometimes you put out fires for 2 hours that you don't, expect.
Sure. So how did you find these people?
It's really interesting because I'm a big believer in just kind of putting things out there. And I've met with a lot of people, whether it be, possible partnerships or I've had some interns in the past. These people literally came into my lap. Yeah. Literally just, one girl had come right up to me and said, hey, I'm looking for a job and I love skincare. And this other girl I had worked with, I had done a speaking event that she had put together. And she said, it's so funny, she just told me this now, that she had put my picture on her Pinterest board like 2 years ago on her vision board that she wanted to work with me.
Wow.
And now we're working together. I'm like, I love when stuff like that happens.
Yeah. But it is amazing once you talk about what you're doing, what you need, how that can come back around. So I think the takeaway is don't be shy to tell people what you're doing and put it out there, what it is that you need. And I think hiring can scare people at first because it requires capital to put money forth. But I'm sure that it's also allowed you to make more money because you have the support and you can start small. You can start with someone even 5 hours a week gives you 5 hours back, So start small and grow as you have. And I'm just so glad that we got to catch up and
thank you so much.
that I got to hear about your success, and I can't wait to continue watch you grow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, that's it for today's show. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again next week, same time, same place. Thank you so much for listening and have an amazing week.